We are now looking at chapter 11. This chapter 11 is called Risk and Return. Risk and Return. Then we have introduction. Introduction. I think we can also separate. The introduction. We have return on its own. Return. And you write that return is the gain made. Return is the gain made. Full stop. It is defined over a period of time. It is defined over a period of time. Full stop. Is computed as follows. Is computed as follows. Income over investment times 100. Income over investment times 100. All adding value minus starting value plus income all this you divide by starting value, then times 100. Then times 100. Then times 100. And then down there we write that if the amount of returns have probabilities, if the amounts of returns have probabilities, comma, the following formula is used. The following formula is used. expected R equals to sum from the I up to all the way to N Ri P Ri, where this is expected return, Ri is specific return, PRI is probability of Ri, probability of Ri. N, total possible outcomes. 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 Have you finished writing that? Okay, then down there you write that the required rate of return is the minimum rate of return. The required rate of return is the minimum rate of return an investor requires. Is the minimum rate of return an investor requires. An investment to earn requires an investment to earn. An investment to earn given its risk characteristics. Given its risk characteristics. Given its risk characteristics. For the investment to be considered worthwhile. Given its risk characteristics, for the investment to be considered worthwhile. Is computed as required rate of return. Required rate of return is equal to risk premium. Risk premium plus risk-free rate. Risk-free rate. Risk premium plus risk-free rate. Risk premium is equal to return of the market. Return of the market minus risk-free return. Risk-free rate. Risk-free rate. Yeah, so when someone wants to invest their money anywhere, they want to get a return, and that is called minimum. The one that they want to go for them to invest in that project. And in this case, we take what is prevailing in the market. What is the return in the market? You minus the risk-free. Risk-free, it's where your investment is so safe. It cannot lose. And that is part of what we call government securities. Now, the difference between the return in the market and the risk-free, we call it the premium. We call it the excess. When you come to do advanced FM, we'll be talking of the compensation that is required for you to take higher risk. So sasa hiyo unaongezea hapa and you get the required rate of return. So that is about return. Let us now discuss risk. Let's discuss risk. Let's discuss risk. Risk. And we write that risk is the probability. Risk is the probability. Is the probability that the actual outcome will differ from the expected outcome. Risk is the probability that the actual outcome will differ from the expected outcome. Full stop. Risk preference, also known as risk appetite or attitude. Risk preference, also known as risk appetite or attitude, is the willingness and ability, to handle risk or to take risk. Can say that. It's the willingness and the ability to take risk. It's the willingness and the ability to take risk. First up. On the basis of risk appetite, investors are classified into three. Investors are classified into three. Investors are classified into three. Number one, risk neutral. Risk neutral. Risk neutral. Risk neutral, and we write that this is an investor. This is an investor who does not recognize risk. This is an investor who does not recognize risk. Full stop. The investor makes decision. The investor makes decision. The investor makes the decision on the basis of expected value. On the basis of the expected value. On the basis of the expected value. Full stop. The option with the highest expected value, the option with the highest expected value of return, the option with the highest expected value of return is taken. Is taken. Is taken. Number two, risk taker. Risk taker. Risk taker. You write that this is an investor. This is an investor who recognizes risk. Who recognizes risk and takes the option. And takes the option with the highest risk. And takes the option with the highest risk. And takes the option with the highest risk. Number three, risk averse. Risk averse. Averse, unaweza andika O hapa ama E, depending on whether you're using the Britain or American English. Risk averse. Risk averse. And we write that this is an investor. This is an investor who recognizes risk. He's an investor who recognizes risk and takes the option with the lowest risk. And takes the option with the lowest risk and takes the option with the lowest risk. Okay, then down there now, we write that risk is measured using the following three measures. Risk is measured using the following three measures. Using the following three measures. One is called variance, and variance is computed like this. It is the sum of Ri minus R bar. You square this. You multiply by the probability of Ri. R bar, remember R bar is the expected value. Number two is standard deviation. Now delta is given as variance squared. In other words, it is the sum of Ri minus R bar, you square that way. Number three is coefficient of variation. Coefficient of variation. Coefficient of variation. CV is given as standard deviation. You divide by the mean, R bar, times 100. Times 100. Times 100. Then after that, you write that the higher the value of these measures, the higher the value of these measures, the higher the value of these measures, the higher the risk. The higher the value of these measures, the higher the risk. Yeah, so those are the three measures we use to measure risk. And we are saying risk is the chance or is the probability. Remember, probability is a measure of chances. So the measure of chance that what you are expecting, you will get something different. Yeah. And when you are expecting something, there are usually three possibilities. That the expected is equal to actual. For example, you expected to get a return of 18% and you have actually gotten a return of 18%. That one does not generate any feeling. It is normal. The second possibility is where the expected is greater than actual. You are expecting 18, but you have gotten something smaller. Maybe you have gotten 15% return. Now, this one is painful because you feel that you have not taken, you have not gotten what you expected. you have lost. The next one is where expected is less than actual. This is where, for example, you are expecting to get 18%, but the return turns out to be 25%. Now, as I've said, this one has no emotion. This one has an emotion of pain. And when there is an emotion of pain, it makes someone to complain. It makes someone to complain and to regret. Now, this one has the emotion of joy. You feel good that you have gotten more. And this makes people to compliment. Although rarely people will speak about this. When you get deeper into this analysis, when you come to do advanced FM and deeper statistics, you will find that we only concentrate more on this one. This is what we normally call the risk, because that is where people will complain. Now, that complaint, that pain, is not everyone that will be willing to take it. And that's now when we are talking of the risk appetite. Risk appetite has to do with the willingness and the ability to handle that risk. So in that case, we have three investors. Kuna wale wanaitwa neutral. Them, they don't care. They don't compute risk. They only look for the expected value. They go for the higher. Then we have the risk takers. Them, they compute risk. Wanaangalia all the options. And they take the one with the highest risk. Then they are risk averse. They do the same. They compute risks. Then they go for the one with the lowest risk. So these are measures of risk. And this is usually the superior most. Usually the superior most. I think we need to note that point, although it was not in my notes, but we can note it. And we write this, andika hivi. In case standard deviation and coefficient of variation. In case standard deviation and coefficient of variation conflict. Comma, coefficient of variation is taken to be superior. Coefficient of variation is taken to be superior. Is taken to be superior. What we mean by that, you could be evaluating two projects, project A and project B. And the standard deviation here is 10 and here is 14. The CV here is 8 and here it is 5. Something like that. Now, if you are a risk taker, you will go for the one with the higher risk. So this one has a higher risk according to standard deviation. So ukifuata standard deviation, it will tell you go for B. But ukifuata CV, it will tell you go for A. Now that is what we are calling conflict. That standard deviation inakwambia chukua B. Coefficient of variation inakwambia chukua A. So who do you take? That's now when we have said that coefficient of variation is taken to be superior. And therefore, we take direction from it. So we will go for this. I highly doubt whether we will come across a question like that. But in case it is there, that's how it's handled. That's how it's handled. Cynthia, good evening.
Good evening.
Karibu sana. Okay, then below that tuandike the relationship between risk and return. The relationship between risk and return is called risk return trade-off. Is called risk return trade-off. The relationship between risk and return is called risk return trade-off. Risk return trade-off. Full stop. Risk and return So we have said, or the next point that we want to write is, risk and return are positively correlated. Risk and return are positively correlated. Risk and return are positively correlated. That is, the higher the risk, the higher the return. That is, the higher the risk, the higher the return. The higher the risk, the higher the return. Just draw a simple graph. Just a small graph. This is x-axis. And this is y-axis. Then something like that. This is a risk here. And this is return. Now, this is the one we call the trade-off. The one we call the trade-off. The one we call the trade-off. Yeah, that's a very, very popular concept in finance. The higher the risk you take, the higher the return. And the less the risk you take, the lower the return. The lower the return. Okay. So let's look at a question that is here, November 2019, question 3B. November 2019, question 3B. November 2019, question 3B. So if you are there, the question says, an investor has presented the following information relating to forecasted returns of two securities, Y and Z, together with their respective probabilities. Okay. So you are told to get the standard deviation of each, the relative risk. Relative risk is the coefficient of variation. Relative risk. Actually, if you can go back to where we had written the standard deviation, unaweza ongeza hapo kwa standard deviation, uongeze absolute risk, na kwenye tulikuwa tumeandika standard deviation, unaandika relative risk. Relative risk. So ukiona absolute risk, it is the standard deviation. Ukiona relative risk, it is coefficient of variation. Now, the difference is absolute just looks at one character, just one character. But relative looks at two characters. Yeah, looks at two characters. Yeah, it's all like me and you tukapewa mtihani ya FM. And we sit for it and it is marked. And then the highest. Janet is saying my screen is off. Cynthia, are you seeing the same? That it is off? Okay, Janet, what you do, restart your gadget. Restart your gadget. Restart, I will wait for you. Priska, how are you? Karibu. It's fine now, Janet. That's good. We proceed. I get socks. See you. See you now. I'll follow you now. So answering this question that we have been given at hard, the question of November 2019, question 3B. November 2019, question 3B. So the first thing, they want us to get standard deviation. So you write the formula. Now, standard deviation is given as the sum of Ri minus R bar. You square this, multiply by probability of Ri, you get the square root. Now that means for you to get the standard deviation, you must also get R bar. Now remember, this R bar is the one we called expected R. It is the one we called the expected R. Na tukasema it is the sum of the Ri multiplied by the probability of Ri. And then relative risk, we have said it is CV is equal to standard deviation over R bar times 100. R bar times 100. R bar times 100. So you can choose to compute each on its own, or you can do a table. A table will be easier. A table will be easier. So we are going to draw analysis table here. We're going to draw analysis table. And in the analysis table, we will have the probability here. This is the one we are calling PRI. We will have the probability here. Then from there now, we have security Y. Security Y. So in security Y, we have the return. This return is Ri. Then we will have the expected return. Now the expected return will be given as Ri. You multiply by the probability of Ri. Then we will have variance. Now variance is given as Ri minus R bar squared probability of Ri. Then we come to security Z. We have the return again. We do the same thing. Ri. We have the expected return. The expected return. That will be Ri multiplied by probability of Ri. Then we have the variance here. The variance will be Ri minus R bar square probability of Ri. Probability of Ri. 0.1 here, 0.2, 35, 0.05, 0.15, 0.15. Then we shall get the totals. So the first thing, add these totals, or rather add these probabilities. Add the probabilities, niambie toto yake ni ngapi? I'm waiting for the total of this. So if you have gotten that as 1, let's start with security Y. Security Y, the returns are 10. We have 12. We have 8, 15, 14, and 9. Now, what I want us to do is to multiply. So multiply this by this. 0.1 times 10. Give me the answer. Yeah, it is 1. This one, 0.2 times 12. Two point 0.35 times 8. 2.8. Next, 0.75. Next, 2.1. Next, 1.35. Total, total of that, 10.4. Now, below that, you can draw a summary. You can draw a table that we shall call summary. Below that, draw a table that we are going to call summary. So here we have security Y and security Z. So we start with the mean. The mean. Alafu tutakuja tutafute variance. Alafu tutatafuta standard deviation. Standard deviation. And finally, coefficient of variation. We draw a table that summarizes these things. That way, we shall bring our answers there. So, this total here, according to the formula we had written, this is the mean. That is the mean. So we andike hapo. Hiyo ndio x bar, r bar. So tukikuja kwa hii column nyingine hapa utasema now this one utakuwa unachukua this 10 una minus 10.4 una square you multiply by 0.1. If you have space you can write, if you don't have space unaandika huko chini ama you just substitute straight. Give me the answer. Already tushaandika formula hapa, so there is no need of a lot of duplication. So this minus this, you square, what you get, you multiply by 0.1. $0.016. So there is no need of rewriting. That's why we made the table, so that it makes our work easier. Sasa sema 12 minus 10.4. You square. That value, you multiply by 0.2. Uh, 0.512. The next, $2.016. The next, The next 1.058. Next, $1.944. Next, $0.294. So sasa, get the total there. Get the total. Get the total of those variances. So total 5.84. So that 5.84 is the variance here. So get the square root of it. Get the square root of 5.84. That will be the standard deviation. The square root of that, $2.417. So the standard deviation is 2.417. Then if you get this 2.417, you divide it by the mean, 10.4. Then you multiply by 100. 2.417 divided by the mean, 10.417 times 100. That gives you the coefficient of variation. %23.24%. 23.24%. Haya, sasa tuende kwa Z. We do the same thing. Z now we have 8, 10, 7. 8, 10, 7, 12, 11, and 8. So now, let's start to multiply. Sasa unachukua hii probability, this times this 8. You get 0.8. 0.2 times 10, 2. 0.35 times 7, 2.45. 0.05 times 12, 0.6, 0.15 times 11, 1.65. Next, 0.15 times 8, 1.2. So add them. Add the values. $8.7. Haya, let's go to the value. Sasa hiyo ndio mean. Tuiandike hapa chini kwa our table. 8.7. That is the mean. That is the mean of Y. Sorry, of Z. Let's get the variance. Kawaida. Tumesema sasa utachukua hii. Unachukua 8 minus 8.7. 8 minus 8.7, you square that answer. Then you multiply by this probability of 0.1. You multiply by that probability of 0.1. $0.049. Then uchukue 10 minus 8.7 minus 8.7, you square, and that value you multiply by 0.2. You get 0.338. 0.338. Next is 7 minus 8.7. You square, you multiply by 0.35. Every computer again. 7 minus 8.7, you square, you multiply by 0.35. Janet, I also need your answers. Oh, you're also getting the same. Let me see. Tunasema ni 7 minus 8.7. You square that times 0.35. Oh, so my answer hapa ndio iko wrong. Good. So it is 1.0115. Good. Haya, let's continue. Sasa unachukua 12 minus 8.7. You square the difference, you multiply by 0.05. Oh, 0.5. Is it 44? Or rather, okay. The same. 0.5445. Give me the next now. The same rhythm. 7935. 0035. So add them. Two point 81. 2.81. So sasa hiyo ndio variance 2.81. So get the square root of it so that we have the standard deviation. The square root of it 1.67. Haya, sasa kutoka hapo 1.67 divided by 8.7, then multiplied by 100. Unachukua this standard deviation, this one, una divide na the mean 8.7, then you multiply by 100, just like we have done with the y. Okay, 19.2%. Huh? Is it 19.2 or 19.9? Which is which? I'm saying it is 1.67 divided by 8.7 times 100. This is 19.195. Oh, yeah, it's the same thing. I agree, the same thing. 19.2. Yeah, if we are giving 2 decimals like the other one, is 19.2. Yeah. So that is how they are computed. So the examiner had asked us, advise the investor on which of the two securities to invest in. Now, I don't think we are told what kind of an investor is this. They are saying an investor has presented the following information. So we are not told what kind of an investor this one is. We are not told what kind of an investor this one is. But because we have covered how each of the investors make decisions, we can still proceed and say, we can do another table down there. Unaweza iweka namna hii, decision criteria. Decision criteria And then we have security selected by a risk we have risk neutral, risk taker, and risk averse. Risk averse. So the first criteria is the mean. Is the mean. Then the next one is the standard deviation. Standard deviation. And the last one is coefficient of variation. Coefficient of variation. Now, decision criteria, it is that characteristic that you check in an option or in options. And based on that character, unasema nataka hii ama sitaki hii. Ndio inaitwa decision criteria. Decision criteria. Now, if you are a risk neutral tulisema anatumia the mean. And remember, the mean is the expected value. Remember the mean, maybe I also needed to specify that because I think in our notes we talked of the expected value. When we talk of the mean, we are talking of the expected value. So tulisema risk neutral anaangalia means na anachukua the highest. Anachukua the highest. So risk neutral will go for Y. Now, risk neutral person does not use standard deviation. So we just say not applicable, and even here not applicable. Tulisema risk neutral, he does not compute risk. So hatafika huku. So they are not applicable. Not applicable. Ukikuja kwa risk taker, hatumii hii. So this one is not applicable to a risk taker. It's not applicable to a risk taker. So risk taker akitumia standard deviation atakuja angalie hii na hii. Tulisema the higher the value, the higher the risk. So the risk taker will go for the higher one. So atachukua Y. Chukua Y. And akitumia coefficient of variation atakuja angalie hii 23 na hii 19. Anachukua the higher. That is still Y. So these ones, the two measures are in agreement. You see now they are telling us Y. So they are in agreement. But kama moja ingekuonyesha X, tulisema sasa unafuata coefficient of variation. Risk averse yeye hatumii mean, does not use the expected value. Does not use the expected value. So what happens is he computes risk, anaangalia hii na hii, anaendea ile dogo. So you go for Z. Akitumia standard deviation, na vile vile hapa akitumia CV atatendea Z. That is what happens. So if you are okay, sema yes. Kama uko na swali uliza. Good. We are good. So for your assignment, take note of these two questions. November 2017, question 5C. November 2017, question 5C. And November 2015. November 2015. November 2015, question 5D. November 2015, question 5D. So those questions are very similar to the one that we have handled. So make sure you get time and go through them in the same understanding or in the same procedure. Yeah. Let's see, we still have some minutes, so I want to introduce something else called portfolio theory. Portfolio theory. Portfolio theory, and we write that a portfolio refers to a combination of investments. A portfolio refers to a combination of investments held together. A portfolio refers to a combination of investments held together by an investor. Held together by an investor. Full stop. The main objectives of creating a portfolio. The main objectives of creating a portfolio are to minimize risk. and maximize returns are to minimize risk and maximize returns. Full stop. A company experiences two types of risks. A company experiences two types of risks, which are financial risk and business risk. Which are financial risk and business risk. Yeah, so we are saying when you invest, there is this very old saying that says you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Because if that basket happened to fall, you lose everything. So the same happens with investors. Because in the investment world, different investment opportunities move to different directions in the same time. Different investment opportunities move to different directions in the same time. You may find, like now, in this month of July, when it is very cold, someone who is selling these heavy clothes is making sales. But someone who is selling the right clothes is not making sales. So the heavy and the right, they are different. One is selling, the other one is not selling in the same month of July. When we cross over to next month in August, when temperatures will be high, the trend reverses. The heavy stops selling. The light starts selling. Yeah. That's what happens. So as an investor, you would want that in the month of July, you are making money. In the month of August, you are also making money. So you need to have the two of them. You need to have the right and the heavy. So that in July, the heavy is giving you money. In August, the right is giving you money. But if you just hold one, for example, you hold heavy, you make a lot of money in July, but August, zero. If you are holding light, July, no sales. August, a lot of sales. So to ensure that you are making money all the time, we combine securities, we combine investment opportunities. And when you combine them, that mix is called portfolio. And the objective of this portfolio is to ensure we maximize returns and minimize risk. Now, when looking at the risk, remember earlier on when I explained about the risk, I said we are already concerned when things do not go what we expected. But if things exceed our expectation, we don't have a problem. So in our case here, we will now look at when things are below our expectations. That is the risk. And that's why now we have said that business has two risks. There is the finance risk and the business risk. So let's start with financial risk. And because financial risk, we discuss it. Financial risk. And we write that this is the risk associated with the use of debt capital. This is the risk associated with the use of debt capital. This is the risk associated with the use of debt capital. Full stop. It is also known as gearing or leveraging risk. It's also known as gearing. It's also known as leveraging risk. It's also known as gearing or 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 leveraging risk. or leveraging risk is also known as gearing or leveraging risk, computed as follows. Computed as follows. Gearing ratio is equals to total debt capital, total debt capital, total debt capital. You divide by total equity capital. Now this one, you can multiply by 100 or you can leave it as a ratio. You can multiply by 100 or you can leave it as a ratio. Yeah, hiyo ni rahisi namna hiyo. It is simply the debt you divide by equity. That's called financial risk. And we call it financial risk because ile siku utashindwa kulipa madeni, utapata the auctioneers, they are coming. Those who are doing company law, that's when now you hear of issues of receivership, issues of liquidation, issues of administration starting to knock your doors. Higher, let's discuss the second one, business risk. Business risk. Business risk, and we write that this is a combination of two types of risks. This is a combination of two types of risks, which are systematic risk and systematic risk. And systematic risk and systematic risk. That's what we call business risk. So let's start with the first one. And systematic risk. And systematic risk. And systematic risk. And we write that this is a risk that is unique to individual firms. This is a risk that is unique to individual firms in the industry, and can be eliminated or reduced. And can be eliminated or reduced. Can be eliminated or reduced through diversification of investment portfolio. Through diversification of investment portfolio. Investment portfolio. Full stop. Risk diversification is only possible. Risk diversification is only possible if the returns of the two investments are negatively correlated. If the returns of the two investments are negatively correlated, that is, they move towards opposite directions. they move towards opposite directions. Full stop. Due to its diversifiable nature, due to its diversifiable nature, due to its diversifiable nature, comma, it is not incorporated in investment appraisal. It is not incorporated in investment appraisal. Full stop. Examples include poor employees remuneration. Examples include poor employee remuneration, poor employee remuneration, comma, industrial strikes, comma, poor marketing, etc. The risk is measured using standard deviation. The risk is measured using standard deviation. Let's discuss the systematic risk. Systematic risk. Systematic risk. And we write that this refers to the variability in returns. This refers to the variability in returns. The variability in returns of securities cash flows. Of securities cash flows. Of securities cash flows. Due to factors that affect the firms in the industry. Due to factors that affect the firms in the industry. Factors that affect the firms in the industry. Full stop. Examples include political instability, comma, inflation, etc. Full stop. It is measured using beta factor. It is measured using beta factor. It is measured using beta factor. It's measured using beta factor. We have a diagram like this. This is an systematic risk. Systematic risk. Yeah. That's one way of looking at them. There's also another way of looking at it. Y-axis. This is X-axis. This is business risk. So this is total. This one here. This is the unsystematic. And this one is systematic. Now, unsystematic, hizo ni shida zako now as a business. Wewe mwenyewe, your own problems, internal problems. Yeah, and those ones you can be able to remove them. You're saying you can diversify. But the systematic ina affect kila mtu, ina affect the entire system. So sio wewe tu, and there is nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. So those are the risks that we have. Now for your assignment on the same, you will check August 2023, question 3A. And November 2019, question 3A. So that is all that I wanted us to or we are able to do today. We'll now meet in our next lesson. And we'll be able to do a question and or rather continue. Remember I told you to study the Islamic finance. I gave you the notes some times back. I hope you have been reading. They are all theories, hakuna computation. Yeah. So thank you very much for attending the lesson. We meet now in our next lesson. So we shall finish this in our next lesson and then begin the revision for the few lessons remaining. So kama umemaliza kuchora, you can exit so that nisifunge kama mtu hajamaliza. Good night.